I looked at it, I'm a gearhead. I love to work on stuff, bikes, cars, trucks, everything. So we get there and I see it's just got a carport and I'm like, well, this is never going to work. I need a garage. I don't have anywhere to put my toolbox, nothing. So we went in and looked at it anyway. And as we're going through the house, I start saying, this place is great. Let's go ahead and do it. And we had left and we were discussing it on the way home. And the boss lady, she said, I hate that place. I don't ever want to, I don't ever want to go back there again. And I said, what are you talking about? I love that place. And we kind of got into an argument about it. And we discussed it further, and she started doing research on the house, and she found out that this place had not been occupied any longer than 6 months at a time for the last, going back like 6 years.
Oh,
and
wow.
So we talked to the couple that were selling the house, and we said, is there anything weird about this house? And she straight up said, I don't have to tell you that. And so, okay, red flags there. So we probed a little deeper on that, and she started to tell us that they had tried to sell this place rent to own like 3 or 4 times in the last 2 years, and every time a couple moved in there, the husband ended up arrested for domestic violence. One time a neighbor almost got shot. So we started to talk to her more, and she said, I've had my prayer group go over there a few times to get rid of just the way that house feels. So we thought we'd go back and check it out again at my urging. And we had our kids with us this time. And as soon as we walked in, our little boy goes, this house is scary. It's like there's a ghost in here. And so that was it. That was all the encouragement we needed. We were done. We took our deposit back, and we got out of there.
Yeah, that was a smart move. But, legally they have to disclose if anything, if a house is, believe it or not, haunted, or there's been a murder in the house or something. But something bad happened in that house.
Yeah, all she would tell us, she said, I don't have to tell you that. All I have to tell you is no one was killed or there were no suicides in this house. That's all she would tell us until we dug a little deeper.
Well, maybe it was a good move because that could have been the end of, your relationship and all that.
Yeah, it was definitely weird. I'm glad we didn't end up taking that place.
Well, I've had, people who have bought houses and, all of a sudden things started happening on their property. In one case, I had a ex-detective for a state on my show, and he is an investigator, for the paranormal, strange things, ghost hunting and stuff like that. And one of his clients was having all kinds of weird things happening at their house. Well, it turned out in their backyard, there was a fence, and on the other side of the fence, there was a cemetery. That wasn't the bad part. The bad part is that he managed to talk the people in to spend the money to do ground penetration radar, and found out there was a bunch of corpses, buried in their backyard, starting off from their patio onward. Things like that can just sit there and destroy your life because you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, not good. I think that for me, that stuff's all scary, but I think that the big interest for me with this has always been, for me, this proves that there's something after this, more so than anybody telling me that there is or reading it somewhere. If there are ghosts, then that to me means there has to be something that comes after this, and that's comforting to me. Even if what you're seeing is scary, it's still comforting to me.
Well, it depends, and just depends if you go to the light or don't go to the light, I guess.
I suppose that's true.
Because, a lot of these, ghosts and stuff, it's for some reason, they didn't choose to go to heaven or hell or wherever. For some reason, they're still, walking around. And in most of the cases, they don't even realize that they're dead.
Yeah, and that makes sense too. I guess for me, I just like the knowledge that there is something that comes after this, and all it takes is one experience to really set that in stone for you.
I don't know. See, when I pass on, I want to go somewhere else. I don't want to be walking around in the living room.
The worst would be is if you were stuck at the graveyard with your own body. I couldn't imagine that being in existence.
Yeah, and there's so many people getting recordings like in the cemetery. Walking in the cemetery and people they'll hear like hi or whatever, they record it, and there's nobody around, and it just tells me that some people are still trapped. And that's I always thought when you passed on, two things happen. Okay, one, nothing happens. Just like your computer goes dead, right? You throw it away and it's over with. Or two, you go to another plane. And the one part that scares me is what happens if you don't, like I said, don't go to the light, and somehow you're trapped here, and going through a cycle over and over and over again. Maybe that's hell. I don't know.
I was just about to say that.
I don't want to find
I've
that
always
out.
heard people say repetition is hell. That might be it.
Could you imagine just living over and over at the same experience and never changing? I don't know. A friend of mine who's passed on, Art Bell, John Lear came on his show. Oh, this is back in the mid 90s. And, or maybe it was even in the 2000s, early 2000s, told Art, you don't want to go to the light. It's a trick. You want to go to the dark side where it's dark and it's peaceful and all that stuff. And my friend Art, we talked about it on the phone numerous times because he was it really bothered him from the standpoint when, and he has since passed on. So I don't know which direction he went. But could you imagine the decision? Do you go to the light or do you go to the darkness?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never got to speak with him, but he's actually what got me into seriously studying this and really looking into it. He was a huge influence in my life. I discovered him about 6-7 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And I was really sad to hear that he passed because he got me through a lot of late nights driving.
Yeah, it was really hard on me because, just a few days, before he passed on, I was talking to him on the phone. He called me and we were talking and he was giving me some pointers about my show and all that stuff. And, I said, I want that book that you and Whitney wrote about the superstorm. And he goes, well, you can find it on eBay. And I said, yeah, but I really wish I would have got a new one. Well, I hate to say it, the day he dies, guess what came in, or the following Monday came in the mail. He sent me the book. And then, here I get the book. And then at the same time I get the book, I'm reading everywhere that he passed on. It was really eerie.
That's crazy, but it's good that you'll always have that, that memento of an old friend.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, so now when you were 5 years old, all this weird stuff was going on. When you were wife, you were looking at a house to rent, to buy, and, strange things were going there. What happened next to you, Nick?
Well, I kind of jumped. That thing with that rent-own house was just a few months ago. But so after I saw that whenever I was a kid, things kind of slowed down after that for quite a while. And then whenever I was about 19, my dad had moved to Michigan, and he was going through some hard times out there, and he asked me to come stay with him. So I didn't have much going for me in Pennsylvania at the time, and I knew he really needed me, so I went ahead and moved out there. And his house that he owned out there, that place was just a carnival of activity. You would lay there at night, and you would just see all colored red, blue, green orbs just flying around the room. The door handles would jiggle, things like that. If you were there, if you were the only one in the house and everything was really quiet, you would hear like old music. It sounded like it was on a record player. Neither one of us owned a record player. And I think the craziest thing that happened in that house was he had gotten up to to take a shower, and I was already at work. And my dad is a sloth. He always has been. He always will be. But he got out of the shower and got back to his bedroom, and his bed was made. Something had made his bed.
Oh, wow. That would be the point where I'd be looking for another place.
Yeah, it was. We were both truck drivers, and at that time we were both kind of local. We weren't home every night, but we were home pretty often. And so a lot of times I'd be there by myself at night, or he would, and wasn't a great feeling. Not a great feeling.
Well, yeah. How long were you there, and how long was this stuff going on for?
He had lived there for a number of years. He had probably lived there for 6 or 7 years. I only stayed with him there for about a year, and then he eventually moved in with a girlfriend of his, and I did the same. I don't know whatever happened with that house. I don't know if the new owners have experienced anything or not, but the girl that I was seeing at the time, she said she was psychic. I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. But one day she told us what the name of the spirit was in the house. And later on, Dad was talking to his next door neighbor, and he asked him who used to live there, and he said it was this woman, and the names matched up. So that kind of added some creepiness to the story.
Oh, wow. So, again, you said, like, the bed got made. Did he have any other, like, weird experiences, like anything else that, besides the bed being made and the jiggle of the doors and the orbs?
No, it was just stuff like that. I told him after the bed started being made, I said, I wish you'd bake cookies or something like that. That'd be nice to come out to. But, no, it was never anything much more than that.
Did you ever have any, like, weird smells in the house, like lilac or anything like that, or hot or cold spots?
No, not there.
Uh-oh. When you say not there, now, have you had some other place that had those experiences?
Yeah, but it was never anything scary. This actually happened. This was recent. It was this winter. I had had a very long day at work, a very trying day at work, actually about a very trying 2 weeks at work, and I was finally on my way home. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I got in my pickup, and I was driving home, and I live way out in the middle of nowhere, way out there. We actually live on a working dairy farm. And as soon as I got in the pickup truck and fired it up, I started to smell the cologne that my grandfather used to wear. He passed on in 2012, and it was extremely comforting. And then I was almost home. I was on our little 2-lane road, and had to come to a complete stop because one of the biggest bucks I've ever seen in my life just wandered out in the middle of the road and came to a complete stop. And he was an extremely avid hunter. So that was quite the experience, and it brought me a lot of peace.
Yeah, strange things, happen when people pass on, or animals. I recently lost my pet dog I had for 20 years. It was part poodle, part terrier, which he really lived a long life. But, he passed on in my arms here a couple weeks ago. And the funny thing is, like, the next night, he used to sleep in our bed, and he had a tendency to go from the foot of the bed and work all the way up and put his head on my pillow next to me. The next night, I swear to God, I felt his little footprints, because I could always feel it when he would creep up, real slow on the bed, his little footprints. Mm-hmm. I felt it all the way up to the pillow. I turned the light on. Naturally, he wasn't there. But that happened like 2 or 3 times after he passed on. And maybe he was just letting me know that he's still there. I don't know. But I'll tell you, that is really eerie.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I think with pets especially, that's a likely thing to happen, because really, you're all he's ever known. I mean, you've been his comfort and his family and his love, so where's he going to come back and visit? It's going to be you, always, So I fully believe that.
Well, I tell you, I never thought something like that would happen till it happened. But, I've had a couple ghost experiences, but I'll tell you, they've been very far apart. So I don't know. Now, what else has happened strange to you since you were 5 years old?
Well, Michigan was good for this. I don't know why, but Michigan was great for this. One time I was on my way to work with that ex-girlfriend that I was telling you about, and we were almost to the yard, the trucking yard where I was working at the time, and it wasn't really late. It was like 10 o'clock at night. And there was a hitchhiker just walking down the road, and, nothing unusual, nothing special. And I looked back in the mirror, and there wasn't anybody there. And I said to her, "Did you see that?" And she goes,